Hello, my name is Jacqueline. I am a corporate flight attendant, former commercial flight attendant, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Jacqueline Travels. Today is Thursday. I am posting part 2 of this video. Quick backstory, maybe some of you have watched part 1 already, or maybe you're new to my channel and you're not sure what this video is about. But recently on the community tab of my YouTube page, I posted a poll and I said I would be recording 2 videos this week. One was gonna be the pros of being a flight attendant, and the second video was gonna be the cons of being a flight attendant. And I did a poll. I asked you guys which video you wanted to see published first, and you guys wanted to see the pros of being a flight attendant published first. That one had 62% of the votes for going out first. So earlier in this week, on Monday to be specific, I posted that video. I'll link it here for you. And today is Thursday, and here we are. This is the cons of being a flight attendant. So before we even get into it, I'm gonna put the disclaimer out there. I love being a flight attendant. I feel like anytime I'm real about the job and I explain the hardships, inevitably someone out there is like, if you hate your job so much, why don't you just quit your job? Well, if you listen to my video, then you would know I didn't hate my job. I know that was childish of me to do. Whatever, that's how I feel about the criticism after a certain point. But I do not hate my job. I just try to post realistic videos letting you know most flight attendants on social media are showing exotic destinations or fancy airplanes and really living the life. And that's because, yes, as a flight attendant, we really live the life. Like my pro video, I already guarantee it was gonna be longer than my con video. But there are some drawbacks to flight attendant life, and the job is not for everyone, and I'm just trying to be honest with you guys. So before you go typing away behind your hidden profile and your fake name, I'm a real person. I use my real image and I talk about my real job. So I have real experiences. I've had real bad days, but overall, my days on the airplanes are fabulous. I love flight attendant life. There's nothing else that I would rather do. So just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there real quick. I'm bound to hear something still. I'm ready for it. But then now I feel like I need to give thanks and praise to the people who defend me. When I hear negative comments, a lot of times you guys will come back and be like, hey, Jacqueline Travels is like one of the flight attendants who is being real about what the job is. And I didn't take what she was saying as complaining. Like, she's sharing hardships with you. Every day is not a pretty day. So thank you to everyone who has my back. That's the majority of you guys. I feel like I have such a good following here on YouTube, and I chat with many of you every week or every video, and I post 2 videos a week, and I have such a great support system here on YouTube. So thank you to all of my rock star, I don't even want to call you guys like followers. I feel like that's not fair. Like, we chat a lot, like twice a week is a lot to catch up with you guys. And I have the regulars who I chat with, and I know who you are, and I could just start listing off names now. Like, I wouldn't even need to look back at my notifications. And just thank you. You guys make YouTube so much fun, and you make me sharing my flight attendant job on YouTube great. So I feel like the intro, I've kind of gone all over the place with that one. I'm gonna get into it. This is my video, the cons of being a flight attendant. Let's just start with the schedule. When you are first a flight attendant, you are a reserve flight attendant. So you are on call, you are at the mercy of crew scheduling. Your phone can ring at any time in a 24-hour period, and you will need to report to the airport within 2 hours of receiving that phone call. So you better hope that you're packed and that you're ready to go and not in the middle of something fun. So reserve life is very stressful. And on top of that, you eventually graduate and you get a line, which is what we call a schedule in the airline industry. So a line flight attendant is just a flight attendant that has a schedule. They're not on call anymore. But when you get your line, that doesn't mean you get a good schedule. It just means you know where you're flying and when you're flying. So you're gonna be flying on weekends and missing social time with friends and family. You're definitely gonna be flying on holidays. I have spent plenty Christmas Eves in a hotel room crying because I wasn't at home with my family, and that sucks. But it was a part of the job, and I hung in there, and eventually I gained seniority, and flight attendant life became so much better. But again, for the sake of the video, we're not talking about any of the pros. I'm here to just let you know the harder side of being a flight attendant and the cons that are involved. So if you're thinking about a flight attendant career, definitely take what I'm telling you into consideration. Don't let it stop you. Every flight attendant has gone through all of these cons. This is not like my personal experience and me being overly sensitive to what the flight attendant job is. Everyone who's a flight attendant will list the same cons that I'm listing for you now. When you first start as a flight attendant job, it's hard. The schedule is really hard. And going back to the reserve thing, we also have something called airport standby or sitting the couch. There's like a million different phrases that flight attendants have coined for this, but sometimes you just sit in an airport for 6 hours and you only make half pay. So you're only making your hourly flight attendant rate for 3 of those 6 hours. So you're working at 50% basically. And you sit in the airport and you wait for a flight to come in late, or a flight attendant to get sick and they can't work a flight and they call in sick last minute. And then you rush from the crew lounge or wherever you're choosing to sit in the airport to cover that flight on reserve. Or sometimes you're not called. So you just sit in an airport for 6 hours and try to figure out what to do with your life. And you spend too much money on airport food. And you get stopped by passengers wanting to know where baggage claim is, where their next flight leaves. They're not even flying your airline. And there comes a point where you just want to walk through the airport wearing a sign like, if you need to know where something is, look up. Airports are full of signs. Everything you need to know is listed on a sign and it will show you an arrow. Go that way for this, go that way for that. But since you're at work and you're a professional, you just smile and you just deal with it. So my next con is something 100% opposite that I listed in my pro video. In the pro video, I said you don't need to live where you work. But in the con video, the airline determines where you live. And let me tell you why I have the stance on that. Like I said, when you first start, you are a reserve flight attendant. You have those quick 2-hour phone calls and you can be called at any time. So you need to live near the airport that you are based at. You can't hop on a plane when crew schedule calls you to work a flight because you might live further than 2 hours from your base and you're not gonna make it in time. So when you're first starting out as a flight attendant, you do have to be close to the airport. Once you get a schedule, that rule doesn't really apply anymore. And maybe you don't have to move. There's something called a crash pad. And basically a crash pad is a college dorm for flight attendants. Sometimes we share them with pilots. And there are things called hotbeds. So you don't even get a room in the crash pad. You pay your rent monthly or your fee or however they want to structure this. And it could be a rotating door of like 12 different flight attendants going in and out, and you hope your schedules are different so you always have a place to sleep. Yes, this is real. When you're starting out as a flight attendant, you're not making a lot of money, so you're probably not gonna fly to whatever city you're based in and pay for a hotel for your 5-night reserve shift. And maybe you don't get called and then that's just 5 nights wasted in a hotel. If you're a reserve flight attendant, you're gonna be staying in a crash pad, or maybe you have friends in that city or family in that city, and good for you if you can use them. But yeah, more than likely, the airline is determining where you're gonna live. You have to be close to the airport, and you're probably gonna be staying in a crash pad, which is honestly just my nightmare. It's worse than a dorm. It's nonstop drama because everyone is a flight attendant and we have different sleep schedules. Some of us are working at night, some go in on the weekends, some go in on the weekdays. There's relationship drama, there's passenger drama. It's like a lot of bickering and yelling, and it's just not like a zen place at all. So good luck with the crash pad situation. All right, another con to flight attendant life. When you first start out as a flight attendant, your salary, it's not gonna be pretty. If you want full transparency, my first year as a flight attendant, I made $17,000. Now granted, this was years ago, many years ago. That's how much money I made my first year of flying. Now, if you're a commercial flight attendant, you're probably gonna make like $24,000 a year, which also is terrible money. Like, who can live off of that? And you're gonna have to pick up trips to help that flight attendant salary shoot up there. So starting pay is very low for flight attendants in the beginning. And in the beginning of flight attending is the worst like period of having a flight attendant job. So you're not making much for all of the sacrifices. Like I said, you're gonna miss holidays, you're gonna miss weekends, you're gonna be living in a crash pad, and you're kind of gonna feel frazzled because the flight attendant job is so much different probably from anything you've ever experienced before. You're not making a lot of money as a starting flight attendant. Hang in there, it gets better. I promise it gets better. Otherwise, none of us would do this and none of us would be in this profession for as long as we've been in it for. Another flight attendant con for you is short layovers. Again, you could be a reserve flight attendant or you could be a flight attendant line holder who is new to having a schedule, and you work a 10-hour day, but it's 3 flights that total 10 hours. So then you have the ground time in between the flights, which is like an hour. So that puts you at a 12-hour day, but then you have to check in an hour before the original flight. So that's a 13-hour day. And then you have to take the van to a hotel and check in and get your room and like inspect it and make sure everything's okay. So by the time you're done working your 3 flights, you've already been up for like 16 hours and you have a 10-hour layover. But take into account the layover starts the second you land and the plane doors are open. That's when the layover clock starts ticking. So if you're delayed, you're losing your layover time. And if you have a hectic schedule and you're losing layover time, it makes for hard days. You're tired. Hotels are loud. Sometimes you can't fall asleep right away. Or if say you're a reserve and you got a quick call and you didn't have time to pack food, now you're on your own trying to figure out what you're gonna eat for dinner. And when all is said and done, you only have like 6 hours to actually rest in the hotel, because when you wake up the next day, you're waking up like 30 minutes to an hour early to prepare for your day. So short layovers make flight attendant life hard. I was like always in a state of fatigue. I'm like the most tired person ever. I like 9 hours of sleep. I would prefer a nap during the day. I'm a terrible napper and I can't take them, so I don't really try, but I love sleeping. And so I found it very hard to adjust to flight attendant life. And a lot of times my days off were just spent sleeping, like not trying to catch up on anything. I would just be at home and sleeping. So short layovers definitely make flight attendant life hard. It's on my con list. It's a reality. I touched on it earlier, but being on reserve is very difficult, and not having a predictable schedule is not something that everyone is cut out for. You know, there are very detail-oriented people, there are type A personalities, and they like structure. You're not gonna have that structure when you first start out as a flight attendant. You're gonna be all over the place. I don't feel like I really need to explain reserve or just being a brand new line holder anymore, but there's just so much uncertainty when you first become a flight attendant that a lot of people don't want to adapt to that, and it's fine. This job really isn't for everybody. There's a lot of sacrifices that you make as a flight attendant, and I don't blame anyone for saying, you know what, Jacqueline, like you're crazy. I don't know why you would ever do this job. It's not for everyone, and that's fine. Your job might not be for me either, but if it works for you, that's great. My next con of being a flight attendant is something that I describe as my charity work. And what that means, well, I gave you the example of sitting, couch, or airport standby time. So you have a 6-hour shift and you need to be at work for those 6 hours and in your uniform for those 6 hours and ready to go for those 6 hours, but you only get paid for 3 of those hours. So I would consider that I'm donating 3 hours of my time to the airline. That is my charity work for the month. That's how I'm being a good person. But then there's more. So I let you know when you first sign in for your trip, you start collecting that per diem, but a flight attendant does not get paid until the airplane door closes. So you don't start to make your hourly rate until the airplane door is shut. So when you're boarding an airplane and everyone is yelling about someone being in their seat or not wanting to sit next to a child or not being able to put their baggage in the overhead bins, that's charity work. Flight attendants are working for free during that time. And let's just say you get the plane boarded and then the pilot comes over the PA system. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have a mechanical issue, so we're not gonna be leaving for the next at least hour. But we want you to stay on the airplane in case that changes. What? So now I'm babysitting those passengers for an additional hour without getting paid for it. And you just know they need a cup of water to take their medication, or they want to be served alcohol because they're going to a fun bachelor or bachelorette party, or they're hungry, or they want you to find out questions about their connection flight. Is their luggage gonna make it? So many different things. And that is honestly the worst part of the flight attendant job. And you don't even get paid for it. So being patient and wearing a smile 100% absolutely counts as your charity work. And then that just leads me into the next con of flight attendant life, which is poor passenger behavior. Now, I don't even need to share any stories with you guys to know passengers act really terribly on airplanes. You can pull up Twitter, you can pull up passenger shaming on Instagram. I'm sure it's all over Facebook. It's all over the news, like national news. Bad passenger behavior makes the news. And we get to deal with it, which is so much fun. I can't even tell you how many times I've been yelled at for things that are out of my control. I don't control the weather. I don't control the mechanics on an airplane. I don't control your Uber driver getting lost and you were late to the airport so you don't know if your bags are gonna make it on. I don't control who sits next to you. I don't control turbulence. None of that, but I get yelled at for all of that. I have many thoughts in my head of things that I would just love to say during those situations, but again, I'm a professional and I'm at work, so I just plaster a smile onto my face and try to be a sounding board. Flight attendants are really great at de-escalating tense situations. I feel like many other professions could learn from flight attendants in that sense. But we take it and we use the resources that are available to us on the airplane if it's a serious threat, and we just go on with our day. It is what it is. There are numerous things about flight attendant life that you can't control, and you just have to learn to brush it off your shoulders. I've had like the worst days at work, and the second the plane lands, I actually don't have to think about that anymore. It's done. I know this is not the Flight Attendant Pro video, but when you have the bad day, you get to get off the plane and then not think about it or take the work home with you, and then life is good again. So I'll just throw that little one in there. This way we can kind of wrap the video up with a positive and a smile. And actually, I'm just looking at my notes. I have more cons for you guys. So real quick, another flight attendant con is it gets very lonely on the road. Sometimes your crew doesn't want to experience the layover with you, or they might be on a different schedule from you, so they have a shorter layover than you have and they need to rest. Or sometimes your crew just doesn't like going out at all. And flight attendants who are like that are referred to as slam clickers because they get into the hotel room, they slam the door and they click the little deadbolt shut. Sometimes you're in a fun place, you have a slam clicker and you don't get to enjoy that experience with someone else. So you have new adventures, but you're dealing with them on your own. So flight attendant life could be very lonely. Another con about being a flight attendant is it's hard to maintain relationships. I gave you the example when I was starting out as a flight attendant, I was fatigued and tired all the time. So I came home and I slept on my days off and I relaxed and I spent the time with my animals or my boyfriend, because me and Johnny were only dating at the time I became a flight attendant. And so I didn't always put effort into maintaining friendships, or I was just too tired. Like my friends would invite me out and I wouldn't want to go, or they would invite me out and I would have like a 4 a.m. report time the next day, and I knew that I couldn't go because I would be missing out on sleep. So you do lose some relationships when you become a flight attendant. Hopefully the ones that are really important to you, you make those last and you do put in the effort, even if it's just like FaceTiming your friends on a layover, when you're in your hotel or when you're sitting couch on reserve as a flight attendant in the airport, you have plenty of time to make phone calls. But if you're not putting the work into it, it is hard to maintain relationships when you're a flight attendant. We're finally at my last con. This is probably the biggest one, and maybe I already said that in this video. I don't know. They all kind of carry like equal weight to me because the bad is just like really bad. But my last con of flight attendant life is people just don't have respect for flight attendants. I think there's a few reasons behind that. One, people don't like not having control of the situation, and so they act in a frazzled manner. And the flight attendant is the person who is seen like on the airplane. They're the easiest person to yell at. So does that make it okay? Absolutely not. I also think passengers don't respect us because they're completely unaware of what the flight attendant job is. I've talked about this in numerous videos, but flight attendant training for commercial flight attendants is anywhere between 6 weeks and 8 weeks. And it is all heavily focused on the safety of passengers and crew and the aircraft. You are spending minimal amounts of time learning onboard service. So what the passenger sees is the flight attendant pushing the cart through the aisle, offering a snack and offering a soda, and they kind of think of us as like the sky waitress. When behind the scenes, what they're not seeing is all of the intense training that we're taking to make sure that we can safely evacuate an airplane, or if there's an emergency in the sky, we can safely attend to whatever is happening. So I think flight attendants just don't get respect because people don't understand what flight attendants do. And they'll talk down to you, they'll make derogatory comments at you. And again, it's just something that you deal with as a flight attendant. You can't do anything except for deal with it. So that's where I'm ending the video. Again, there is a pro to being a flight attendant video. It has a much lighter tone. It talks about all of the great things that are involved with flight attendant life and the flight attendant job. I recommend you watch that one. I will link it down below for you. If you guys think of any other flight attendant cons, post them down below for me. Or if you guys have questions, comments, thoughts, or concerns, I love chatting with you guys in the comment section of my videos. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future flight attendant videos. If you're looking for me on social media, my Twitter is @JackTravels. That is JAC Travels. And if you're looking for me on Instagram, my handle is Jacqueline Travels, just like it is here on YouTube. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it gave you guys a little bit of insight about what flight attendant life could be like. It's not always like this. Honestly, it's still the best job ever, but some days you have bad days, and I wanted to let you know what to expect because it's not always glamorous like you see on the internet. So thank you again for stopping by, and I will talk to you soon.